there. Well, welcome for being here today for Spars Beyond the Stats podcast. I'm Jennifer Kovacic, Spars Communications Director, here with Amanda Cox-Zupan and Nicole Hayden. Thank you both for being here.
Thanks for having us. Thanks for inviting us.
Yeah, so time for our monthly stats conversation. Jumping right in, new listings, pending sales, inventory, and prices all rose in the Twin Cities over the month of March. More specifically, new listings rose 12% in the Twin Cities to 5,993 overall. Pending sales increased 5.5%. Inventory rose just 2% from this time a year ago, up to 7,632 properties. This resulted from a decline in closed sales combined with more new listings, which pushed inventory levels about 2% higher in the Twin Cities. And lastly, the median sales price in the Twin Cities increased from $367,000 last March 2024 to $380,000 this March, for an increase of 3.5%. So as I am always curious to know, what would you guys say is the pulse of today's market here in the Twin Cities and beyond throughout Spars 12 County area?
Mm-hmm. I'd say the market's hot. So
agreed.
I think everyone's come out of hibernation. I think it's still, inventory-wise, still a seller's market, but we are just in a flurry of activity right now.
Yeah.
Do you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I am hearing from more buyers that are getting out ready to shop, and hearing from more sellers who they spent the winter decluttering, going through their things, and they're getting ready to get their house sold. So true to Minnesota form, spring is here and she's ready to go.
Spring has sprung.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's a good problem to have. Sticking to the seller side for just a minute, what you mentioned people decluttering throughout the winter, what's their motivation to finally make that leap? What are you hearing and seeing?
Sure. I think the motivation is spring. So a lot of sellers just know that spring market is kind of the hot time to sell. And I think a lot of agents encourage them to move in that direction too. I don't think there is any wrong time to sell. I think that houses sell any time of year, but we definitely have that rush in the spring. So I think sellers are just excited to see what this spring is bringing and
sick of being cooped up for many months, I suppose.
Yeah.
They're ready to go, ready to move.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think reasons I'm hearing, relocation. Some folks got through another rough winter and said that's the last one. So certainly have population of folks who are ready to move to warmer climates. And then a lot of folks who have their families are growing. They need more space. So folks that are trying to make that move prior to the start of the next school year, I think is always a good motivator as well.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Well, how about some perspective from the buyer side? What are you seeing?
Oh, boy.
Do
you want to start this one?
Sure. I think we saw a bit of a lull in buyer activity in fall and winter. I think people just naturally take a pause, and there was just a little bit of uncertainty around that time. Folks, I think, are ready to get out, and it's not unusual, and we continue to just have a supply challenge. So there's buyers back out, they're motivated, they're ready to go. And we're back in multiple offers. We're back in situations where buyers have to look quickly and kind of make a quick decision. I think it's maybe less difficult than the first time that happened because it's not brand new. I think some of our buyers are, they've heard those stories, so they're not as shocked. They kind of understand that this is the market when it's this busy.
And I think we're in a position after having years of being in a seller's market as realtors to guide them in that direction and say, hey, don't be afraid of multiple offers. We can compete. Here's our tools. And we have a full toolkit for them. So we're like, we can do this. We can do this. If we don't have the extra money, let's try this. Let's try this.
Yeah.
And so I think we're better prepared for it, which helps take away some of that fear for them. Mm-hmm. I was at a showing this weekend at a house in St. Paul, and I talked to the listing agent, they had 34 showings that day. Mm-hmm. Wow. 34 showings. And I brought my buyer in, and she was like terrified. And I'm like, don't think about the number of showings. Like, we put our best foot forward every single time. And so here's your tools. Let's go with our tools. Let's go with our offer.
Yeah.
We did not get it, but
Yeah.
but sometimes you do.
And I think, to your point, we're more prepared to prepare our buyers to walk into this market with more grit. I was just talking to an agent out of my office who has significant tenure in this industry, and the conversation's just different. It's not finding a house, being qualified, and then getting to make an offer. It takes a little bit more back and forth, a little bit more searching. And I think if folks go into the process knowing that, and it's not a shock, we can keep their motivation.
Sure.
Yeah.
I would imagine, too, your enthusiasm and knowledge base, especially for both of your experiences, also kind of helps build that buyer consumer confidence, too.
Right.
So, well, I know we've talked about this before, but I think it's worth repeating that today's home buyers are more sensitive to the mortgage payment versus just rates. Rates are having a larger impact on the monthly budget. And the example, looking at a typical all-in payment that includes a median-priced home, or payment on the median-priced home, including the taxes and insurance, right now, end of 2024 into 2025 is about $2,800 a month. And just 3-4 years ago, we were looking at $1,000 less, $1,800 a month, and that's significant. And I'm sure you're hearing and feeling that as people are out looking for what they can do. Last month in March, we saw condo sales fall more than single-family homes and townhomes, and new construction sales decline while previously owned sales rose. Do you want to talk about this reality and perspective a little bit?
Sure.
Yeah.
Do you want this one or me?
For sure. Yes, I think things are more expensive in the world of housing. That does trickle down for folks who are renting. That's impacting their rental payments as well. So I think folks looking out shopping who are our first-time home buyers have that perspective that it's getting expensive there as well. I think the perspective that I always share with buyers too is that's how much it increased in the last 3 years. Imagine if we kind of hold out another 3 years, how much equity we're missing out on a house if we're waiting that long again. I don't foresee that like turning upside down on its head. So this continues to be an opportunity to invest and then grow that equity at the pace that it's happening right now. Yeah, that's what I would share.
Do you see different concessions being made to try to get into that home?
Oh, 100%. So
what does some of that look
we're
like?
still struggling with inspections. So we're still seeing offers come in with no inspection, and that's hard to compete with. And I can't, in my good conscience, recommend to my buyers to skip inspection, especially when they're buying houses that are like 100 years old. Well, on any house, new construction included, that, there should be some type of inspection. So there's workarounds, and one kind of a trick that's been working fairly well for my clients is like a take it or leave it inspection. So you're still giving them the inspection. So you're protecting them. They're going into this purchase with their eyes open, but they still have the opportunity to back out if it is something big, versus just going in blindly, moving into the house, and then, oh no, the roof is leaking. Oh no, we've got, the M word, we've got mold issues, whatever it is, it protects them. So that's a concession, versus a regular inspection period where there can be some negotiation. But I think when you're coming from a seller's perspective, you want the best price with the least amount of hassle or the least amount of risk. And so I think, doing those types of concessions, it's kind of a win-win where the sellers have less risk. It's a short inspection period. Maybe you can talk to your inspector, make sure it can be like 2 or 3 day inspection period, and take it or leave it. So their risk is lower, but your buyers are still pretty protected.
Yeah.
That's kind of one of the concessions. There's There's some others.
One thing I would add, there's a lot of sellers out there right now who are selling before they're ready to buy their next home. So some buyers have that willingness to do a rent back. That is something I hadn't talked with buyers in maybe a year and a half.
Great point.
But if they have the ability to stay where they're at a little bit longer and allow that seller to know exactly how much they're getting, give them the opportunity to find the house, have that transition, that can sometimes be more important to a seller than the dollars and cents because they've got a little bit ease.
Yeah, take
to
that
move.
pressure off a little
Yes.
bit.
Yep.
And
That's a great idea.
And I think with the higher home prices right now, we've got higher home prices, we have higher insurance premiums, taxes are always getting higher. With all of those costs considered, sometimes buyers are a little short on cash. So sometimes, doing these incredible over asking offers it gets tougher and tougher with the fact that those monthly payments are going higher and higher. So just finding kind of creative ways to work around money being the only option.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Obviously, money is still important.
Money talk, but there's so many things that
There
are equally
is.
important.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yep. And a lot of that can come through financing too.
Sure.
So, doing
Well, I
creative
know in
financing.
March we saw mortgage rates hit their lowest level since October of 2024. And I know that didn't last very long, but I'm curious to know what kind of activity are you experiencing? Did this impact people's decisions? Were there other things? Is it a mix?
I think this is a tricky one because that little brief dip that we had in mortgage rates in March, it came kind of right at the start of our spring market as well. So it was hard to say if we got a lot of extra activity because of that rate dip or if that activity was already coming because, of the warmer weather.
Yeah. Yeah, same feelings on that. I think those two hit at the same time and kind of created this situation where at the office it was like, are you hearing from a lot more buyers? Yeah, I just got like 3 more calls this week from people who are ready to start their search.
Got it. So hard to differentiate in kind of that perfect storm, which I guess either way was good, right?
Yeah.
Last month, we saw condo sales fall a little bit, and I know we've talked inside conversations about this, but I'd love to hear you elaborate a little bit on the why.
Sure. I think insurance has affected condos in a great way. So we're seeing a lot of the extra costs for insurance fall into the association fees. We are seeing association fees that are astronomical. I was showing condos this week and we were seeing association fees of $1,500 a month on top of the mortgage payments. So that really is kind of a place where the buyer has to see the value in paying that extra. And it's one thing when you're looking at an association fee and you're saying, oh, great, I'm paying extra because there's a pool or because I have heated underground parking or I have a concierge or, something that they can see. But just saying, I'm paying extra because roofs are expensive or, something like that, it's hard. It's kind of a harder sell right now. So that's kind of what I'm experiencing, that and just really high assessments. So
Yeah.
I'm seeing assessments of, I think, one of the top ones that I'm working with right now, it's the units are being assessed $100,000 per unit, and the condo itself is only worth $100,000, and that's really, really difficult for the sellers, and hard to sell a buyer on,
Absolutely.
on $100,000 assessment. So
Yeah, and I think one thing I'd add to that, aside from the additional costs, certainly we talk in our communications committee. We have an insurance person that keeps us our ear to the ground on what's happening there. But folks that I work with have very strong feelings about associations. Either they really see the benefit, they take care of all of the work, and that's wonderful, or they feel like it's outside control over something that they own. There's kind of no really meet in the middle. So I think folks either really value the benefit of the association, or they really feel like that's not at all for them. I think some of my buyers maybe used to be willing to look at that, and more I'm noticing that buyers are like, oh no, that's not even something I would entertain. So people have developed strong feelings about them.
Right.
Yeah.
I imagine a lot of your clients' wants and needs are reflective in a lot of ways in terms of what we've talked about with today's stats. Is there anything you want to add to that, or anything that we haven't really talked about that you think is worth including?
I mean, I guess this is what I share with sellers, and it's something we've talked about in the past, but it's a good time to just reinforce houses that are clean and they smell great when you come in the house. They're
A+.
yeah, they're honestly reflective of what the pictures look like online. Those are the ones where people are booking 34 showings in a day, and they're ending the weekend with a lot of offers because the expectation they walked in with is the expectation that they're seeing, if not exceeded that expectation. There are still homes that are not getting 34 showings in a weekend or are not going in their first weekend. And sometimes it's because buyers walk in and they have a level of disappointment. So that's just something to note.
That's such a good point, because I think when we get into the seller's market, especially when it's spring, when it's hot, when sellers are like, oh, my house is going to sell no matter what. They're like, let's throw it on. Either they're in a rush to get it on during peak, or they think, I don't have to do this because it's going to sell no matter what. And that's really another assumption we have to kind of level down with our sellers and say, hey, if you want top dollar for your house, you still have to have your house in top condition.
Yes.
Take a couple weeks, take a little bit of time. This market is not going to end in 2 weeks, but take the time, get your house ready, get it cleaned, get it decluttered, put some fresh paint on the walls. Take care of those small maintenance things that are just going to, make some people walk in and go, eh. So,
and you both raised such a good point. And somebody just said to me recently, all the things you're saying, Amanda, but make sure your front door is welcoming too, because that's the inviting part that walks people
First impression.
So big
through that front door.
And so often there's like cobwebs and handprints and dirt, because it's one of those things you don't think to clean.
Yeah, because if you're coming in through the garage every day,
Right.
you don't really look at it.
Good point.
And tip and trick for buyers who maybe have a more modest first-time home buyer budget. Sometimes I encourage us to look at the houses that survive the weekend, is what I call it. If you have that willingness, capability, and motivation to look past the front door that doesn't look sparkly and shiny, or like my first home, the folks were smokers and smoked in it for 25 years. We knew that we had the ability to kills, primer it from top to bottom, and it would take care of it. So for buyers who are looking for more creative ways in this market, sometimes the ability to look past that can be an opportunity to maybe get seller paid closing costs, or have that inspection and not feel like it's going to be a non-starter.
That is such a great tip.
Absolutely.
10 out of 10, Nicole.
Thank you.
Good job. One thing I wanted to add to that, and this is something that I just told one of my buyers who's going through exactly that. They're looking in a really hot area, and they're in first-time homebuyer price range, so it's very competitive. We've lost multiple offers. We're staying strong. We're fighting through it. But one of the things that I did bring up was renovation loans. So that's an opportunity, especially if you're not at the top of your budget at the house price, to be able, let's say you go in and the house it's great, but nobody's buying it because it's like the kitchen from where. And you think about your dream kitchen, think about what that's going to cost. You add that price to the top of what you're paying for the house. And if it's still in your price range, that could be a really great way to get into the house, get the kitchen you want, and be able to move right in. So I don't know. Great point.
And especially if you're looking at long term.
Right.
Having some time there.
Yep.
I know before we started this conversation, we'd be remiss to not talk about the fact that there has been some economic uncertainty. And although we saw a preview earlier in April that impacted markets, we'll look more fully at that next month when we can reflect on April 1st to April 30th, start to finish. But I wanted to bring it up because I know we had a little bit of conversation before, and you mentioned that there's a little bit of hesitation in what you're seeing.
Yeah. I likened it to what I saw like pre-November election time. Regardless of where that was going to go, there was just uncertainty about what it was going to look like in a month or 2 months or 3 months from that day. And when people are making a very big decision, like buying a house, probably their biggest investment, or selling a house, they want to enter in with a little bit more confidence and stability. I would say I'm kind of seeing that right now. Some folks, again, are having just a little bit more uncertainty. Things have felt a little bit more up and down or changing from day to day, which just makes people nervous. They feel like they don't know what 3 months from now is going to look like. So that's just something that I think we're seeing. Not everybody can make their life decisions based on that. They're still having kids. Parents are still unfortunately passing away, or all the things that prompt people to buy and sell. But for some people that are more cautious to begin with, I would say this is creating even more caution.
Sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, I always love to ask the question, because you're right, this is such a big purchase or decision if you're on the seller side. How do you coach your clients through times like this?
I think, well, for buyers, just keep your chin up. You're going to get one. I promise we'll get one. We just have to keep going. So I think that's one way. And then I think we touched on this briefly before, but just having that toolbox of how to get through that multiple offer situation, like how to go in best foot forward on every offer. Don't get discouraged. Don't get psyched out because there are other offers. Just go into it, with your strongest offer ready. And then just letting them know, if you persevere, you will get a beautiful home.
Sure.
And typically the one that's meant to be. I honestly have never had it turn out otherwise.
Right.
I feel like there's so much truth in that statement too.
There really is. I think it also comes into play at the beginning of working with a buyer. I think most of us in the industry like to have a pretty thorough buyer consultation, not just so that the buyer knows the expectations of the market, we explain agency, we sign the contract, all of those details. But I think it's really important that we understand like our buyer's top 2 or 3 reasons for buying. Do they have a vision of the yard and the fence for their dogs that have always lived in an apartment, had to live leash life? Do they have a vision for their growing family and each of the kiddos having their own room? If we can remind in the midst of the stress of looking or losing out on an offer, like this is the end goal, this is the light at the end of the tunnel. I think that's kind of our role, is to keep that front and center when somebody told us that's their reason when they're losing steam.
That's such a great reminder. Just really focus on those goals and modify as you need to, but remember what you're looking for and why.
Yep.
So we know cash is king, and cash talks a lot, but not everybody is a cash buyer. So what are some creative options that you're seeing and experiencing with your clients right now?
Sure. I think, well, yes, cash is king. Any cash offer usually pops right up to the top. But I think some of the things that are kind of going back to concessions, buyers that are usually contingent on the sale of their home, trying to be creative to remove that contingency. So I've got clients that are drawing out a 401k. I've got clients that are using bridge loans, just, anything we can do to take that part out so that our offer comes in stronger.
Sure. Yeah. Back to the no inspection piece. I had a condo seller who actually didn't choose the highest offer, and that offer had higher cash down payment, but they went the direction of the individual who is willing to forego the inspection. They have a health motivation for selling, so the easiest path to get to the end has the least amount of stress. I know that buyer is actually buying a home warranty so that they have more certainty about at least that first year if something they didn't get inspected, furnace or something, a little bit easier with a townhouse or a condo because the roof and stuff is taken care of. But I think sellers are ultimately looking for ease, especially if they're buying something else after. They want to be able to look with their peace of mind that something isn't going to fall through and have that domino effect.
Right.
So, peace of mind, kind of that number one, right? Well, thank you for all your answers on this. I'll kind of just end this portion of this talk with saying the highest price areas in March were North Oaks, Wayzata, and Medina. North St. Paul was among the most affordable cities, along with Maple Lake and Cokato. Homes took the longest to sell in Rockford, Hanover, and Little Canada, and sold fastest in Jordan, Crystal, and Mendota Heights. And the most undersupplied markets were in Spring Lake Park, Arden Hills, South St. Paul, and Robbinsdale. And while all of these cities are really just that snapshot in time for stats, I think it's always just kind of fun to see and hear, what those cities are in these different categories.
So interesting.
Well, thank you both. I thought really quick, since we're in April, it'd be fun to talk about Fair Housing Month. So let's switch gears for just a couple minutes and talk about some fair housing facts.
Sure. I'll take this one. The Fair Housing Act of 1968 prohibits discrimination in housing based on race, color, religion, sex, familial status, or disability. It also covers national origin. The act makes it illegal to discriminate in sale, rental, and financing of housing and against other discriminatory housing practices. In fact, SPAR is just one of the associations helping people get into homes.
And I know you guys are great at that, so let's just talk about what some of the programs are that you've found that are helpful and beneficial to first-time home buyers, or just, some of the different populations that you work with.
There are a couple different down payment assistance programs. Startup and Step Up, they both start with an S, easier to remember. Both of those help with that upfront cost. They're different programs that either start a repayment at the same time as your mortgage, or it gets tacked on to the end of the mortgage, assuming, especially if we're growing equity at the pace we continue to be in the last few years, the assumption is when you resell, you can pay off that kind of second mortgage for down payment. So that can really be a leg up for people who are trying to find a way to have the upfront money when they know that their rental is the same, if not more, than what their monthly payment for a mortgage would be. Yeah.
Sure.
I'll just add to that First Gen program. I've had a couple clients use that, and that is an amazing program set up to help build generational wealth. So it is specifically for people whose parents haven't owned a home, just to help get them in homes, and it offers low interest, extra financing to help with down payments and closing costs. So those are a couple, and then I would counter off of your first time home buyer programs. So those are really great programs to get started.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I know both of you guys have been involved either in educating clients or teaching different, ways of educating people about the home buying process and just kind of getting that aspiration and their home ownership dreams achieved. Do you want to share about your experiences a little bit? Is any of that helpful, or just some upcoming resources that might be good for anybody in the business to know?
I'll share a couple things. So I have been doing this since I started in my business. I highly recommend, if you are looking for a way to find clients, teaching home buyer seminars. I do that for sellers as well. It's a great way to educate people about the process. It can be a great reminder for us who work in the industry every day to not use all of our inside lingo and language for people who maybe have never done it before. It's a great way to actually connect with really warm leads and folks who then enter the process with a lot of knowledge already. So there's a plug for that. And then actually next month here at SPAR, we are having a home ownership rally. I believe this is our second year doing it. I know we did it last year. There's about 25 vendors that are going to be in our parking lot. There's a food truck, and folks get to invite your clients who actually get a ticket for up to $15 in food from the food truck. So there will be information about down payment programs. There will be lenders and title. And I think there's a little extra effort being put on maintaining your home too. So it doesn't necessarily have to be somebody who's never owned a home. So home maintenance tips. So that's Friday, May 16th from 2 to 5.
Awesome.
So much fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, what a great resource. Good job.
Yeah. And speaking about resources, throughout the month, SPAR has a toolkit on our website, really easily accessible at spar.com, that just talks about fair housing and some of the different resources. And one thing I'll just share that might be kind of fun for clients, especially those with little ones or if they're ever around children. is we have a coloring contest going on right now until the very start of May. And for different ages, there will be some fun prizes. So check out spar.com. You can print it, you can get it submitted, and potentially win a prize.
Awesome. Yeah.
Great opportunity to talk about fair housing with clients too.
Yeah, for
Yes. And while we
Explain
talk
what
about
it
fair
is.
housing in April, I think it's good to say that, it's year round, but
Yep.
this is definitely one month that we can really capitalize on focusing on the importance of fair housing.
That's great.
So anything either of you want to add before we wrap up?
No, we're just happy to be here.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for having us today. This was really fun.
It's always my pleasure to have you both here. Thank
I
you
always
so
love
much.
hearing your insight as
Yeah,
well,
you
Nicole.
too.
You're so thoughtful.
Thank you. Yeah, great to be here with both of you.
Thank you both.
Yeah.
Thanks.